Welcome to Spinner Rack. This is the official Secret Friends Unite comic book podcast for our Patreons. Every episode of this show, we will talk about a comic book, an event, or something cool in the world of comics. And we're doing a very special one near and dear to Charlie's heart, and that is called Duke. Knowing is half the battle. This is basically talking about the introduction of G.I. Joe into the Energon universe in the new Image Comics run by The Walking Dead's founder, is passion into G.I. Joe and Transformers. So we're going to talk all about that new miniseries. It's one of our newer miniseries we covered. Typically, we don't do new books, so we're very excited about it. And before we do that, we want to say thank you to our Patreons because they make shows like this happen. Thank you so much. And by the way, we're going to try to get more of these back on the schedule. We're going to have more new things coming out to all Patreons. And if you're new Patreon, like Mary Letters, thank you, Mary Letters, for being on board.
Mary! Woo!
I hope you like comic books, and I hope you learn something more about comic books. If this is new for you, or if you're a big comic book fan, let us know if there's a comic book series you would like us to talk about.
Yes,
because that's what we're here for.
Absolutely correct. But yes, if you're over, as you already know, you've signed up, so I don't need to give the pitch, but I want to give some love to John Sedorf, the awesome Phoenix Sisters Entertainment, Brendan Myers, Corey and HD, Matthew Keogh, and the fantastic Nias family out there in the Twin Cities, Sean, Stella, and Henry. We are grateful for you. And if you are listening to this in the distant future on our free feed and would like to visit patreon.com/Secret Friends Unite, just like Mary Letters, you can have a free 7-day trial where you can listen to not only this great bonus content, but obviously ad-free versions and early versions of our regular podcast. There's so much to discover. So let's talk about the Jack Bauer of action figures. That's all I thought about watching this, because Duke is just this unstoppable killing machine in this. I love it. And April and I are watching 24 right now, which is one of my favorite old shows. And it's like, he's Kiefer. He's Kiefer. Duke is Kiefer. They missed a window to do that. But yeah, I
got a question, Charlie.
Yeah.
Got a question.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
So the character of Duke, also Conrad Hauser.
Yes.
Do we know why he got the nickname Duke? Like John Wayne, was it that? The Duke?
I'm thinking back to his file card, which is, the character itself was a little, most of your G.I. Joe Real American Hero characters in the action figure line that started in 1982, and I've talked extensively about that series and its founding, yada, 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 were crafted and written by author and artist Larry Hama. He does not really touch upon why he's Duke. I get the feeling it's probably based around exactly like you said, like John Wayne, the big hero, the big, the main dude. Because that's who Conrad S. Hauser is. He is the top shirt, the top enlisted man, the enlisted field leader of the G.I. Joe team. Todd had come from a military background. You understand how important that is, being your top dude.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out his rank when I looked at it, and they show, I just looking at IMDb on Duke, there are several different versions. So he's been an E8, a first sergeant. He's been an E9, a sergeant major, which is the top enlisted member of the Army.
I think the E8 is the most consistent, because really, even on the file card for the figure, Duke was a mail away figure in 1983, because the character debuted on the first G.I. Joe cartoon miniseries in 1983, which was simply called. It was the one about the mass device. It was the mass device one.
Yes.
So he was a mail away character, came out as a carded figure in 1984. So obviously the character's been around since 1983. Which is when his file card was written. But yeah, he was an E8 at that time. First Sergeant was the name of his character, because every character had, especially he was First Sergeant, codename Duke, and then you get his Conrad Hauser, and it says primary military specialty, secondary military specialty, place of birth, rank.
Got it. And he actually was an 06 in the IDW comics. Interesting.
So they made him. They gave him Hawk's job. Hawk is the general. He starts out as a colonel,
general,
and then becomes a brigadier general later on in the Marvel Comics series. So yes,
which is not uncommon to have high-ranking enlisted lead teams and things like that.
Right.
Typically, there is a ranking officer that's in charge of everything in G.I. Joe.
Yeah.
That was Duke. We didn't have
Right.
General Hawk show up that often. So,
Yep.
and so
Exactly
I
correct.
don't know of anybody else's ranks in G.I. Joe. I never do.
Well,
Never knew
they're all on the file cards, and most people were basically in E3, 4, 5, or 6. All of those characters, so they were all had been in for a little while. Because G.I. Joe was supposed to be an elite force of all of the United States military, which always really rubbed me the wrong way.
Including Quick Kick was part of the great martial arts forces.
Exactly. It always drove me nuts when they tried to make G.I. Joe an international fighting force in the stupid 2009 movie, just to be like, we want to appeal to international audiences. And it's like, G.I. Joe is a real American hero. Let's not, you don't need to mess with that part.
He's an MRE that goes to battle.
An MRE, what, meal ready to eat?
Meal ready to eat, yep. He's the spaghetti in a pouch.
They made lots of those jokes in the comics. Ham and lima beans was always
the ham omelet.
Oh my God. Anyway, the pitch of the story is the story you've never read before, the origins of G.I. Joe and Cobra in a world grappling with the arrival of the Autobots and Decepticons. I mentioned this on the main show, but this is a separate continuity from what is continuing on.
Yes.
Larry Hama's somewhat timey-wimey continuation of the series, the comic series that started in 1980.
This is like almost the Ultimates, if we think about for G.I. Joe.
Correct. So anyway, it continues when Conrad Hauser, codename Duke, as we've been talking about, investigates the mysteries behind the Transformers. The answers will lead to the birth of forces of good and evil that the world has never imagined. This is kind of bland. Doesn't really touch on any of the good stuff, but whatever. Duke is the first of 4 G.I. Joe limited series. I've been reading them all because Duke is followed by Cobra Commander. Both of those series have concluded, and now Scarlet and Destro are currently running.
Hey, Secret Friends Unite, let me tell you about Zencastr. We use them for our show, and now they're supporting us. Zencastr is now the all-in-one solution making podcasting easy. It's the ultimate web-based podcasting solution. Provides high-quality audio and video podcast production and hosting. With a full suite of professional tools, podcasters can seamlessly record, produce, and publish studio-quality content all from one dashboard. Being a creator has never been easier. And we chose Zencastr because of the ease of use. High quality output, and it makes it super easy for our guests to come on. We had multiple solutions we tried before, and Zencastr has just been the best fit for us. Why Zencastr? It's now super easy to record a podcast with Zencastr. Log in using your browser and start recording a high-quality podcast right away. Record studio-quality sounds and up to 4K video with your guests. Feel a sense of zen knowing Zencastr's multi-layered backups ensure you always have your recordings in the highest quality, even if the connection is unstable. Have you ever worried what you sound like? Zencastr's post-production process makes you sound buttery smooth. It automatically removes those ums and ahs in your recording. It removes those awkward pauses in conversation too. Set the right podcast loudness and levels while reducing background noise with the click of a button. So if you're interested in making an easy, high-quality podcast just with the click of a browser button, go to Zencastr.com/pricing and use my code SFU1. You'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencastr paid plan. I want you to have the same easy experiences I do for all my podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story. Now back to the show.
And this series does a great job introducing some of the older G.I. Joe characters. In the first issue, we see Duke disheveled, and he looks like he's drunk or high, getting dressed down by Colonel Hawk and saying, dude, you were one of the best. And now, you've had a break with reality, because some months prior to getting this dressing down from the Colonel, Duke was in the field with a fellow operative who got picked up by a giant robot who squished him like a grape. And when Duke came back, all the government would do was gaslight him. They said he was crazy. You didn't see what you saw. Any evidence of it got erased. So Duke just kind of cracked up, and he refused to return to service. Hawk was like, we need you back. And he's like, fuck you. I'm not coming back. You screwed me over. And so he just kind of turns into fuzzy faced Jack Bauer, and he's running around as a scruffly muffly, and great and I mentioned this certainly when we talked about this back in December when the series was new, but he gets approached by Adele Burkhart, who was Lady Doomsday, the person that the team rescued in the very first issue of the original series.
Wow,
Because
deep cut.
She was a nuclear
I did not know that. I would have not known that. Thank you, Charlie.
You're very welcome. But yeah,
Charliepedia is strong.
Well, when it comes to G.I. Joe, I know it like I know Star Trek. I really do. I'm well, despite the fact that I didn't read the last half of Larry Hama's Image G.I. Joe.
So it wasn't based on Adele the singer. I'm glad to know that.
Yeah, though they did look a little bit alike, and maybe in the outtakes there was some kind of singing. I have no idea, but yeah, this takes Duke on a journey where he then becomes a refugee because he gets framed for Adele Burkhart's murder, which happens pretty quickly by assassins. You get Major Blood. You get.
I loved how they brought in all of these characters, Charlie. That quite honestly don't have a lot of screen time on like the animated series, so that's my touchstone. I didn't read any of the G.I. I think I own like one G.I. Joe comic. Didn't really own many of the figures, so for me, seeing Major Blood kind of being a badass and
Major Blood in particular, and it's funny because I'm looking at my figure shelf is right across from me. Major Blood's look was retooled, obviously, because he was one of the newer figures. They did a lot of retooling, much like the image behind you. You see Duke is wearing a little different outfit. And, the Baroness has like a different weird weapon, and Scarlet's outfit is different. But Major Blood's outfit is changed enough. But what's really great about this, he also comes, that big gun he has, that kind of looks like Hellboy's gun. That comes with the figure. That was
nice
from the figure mold. So
synergy.
It was good. But it led to Duke reached out to his friend Lance Sternberg, who is Clutch, who drove the Vamp, which is the big G.I. Joe.
Which, quite honestly, I knew of a lot of these figures and characters. I'm like, but they were so bland. I love the fact that they gave these characters all really strong personalities very quickly, which I loved.
And they did. And it was interesting. It was both Stalker, who was one of the main, he was Snake Eyes' best friend.
He was Lionel Richie.
Lionel Richie, basically. and then you have Rock and Roll, who's basically one of the Beach Boys, but the Beach Boys.
He rocked. I love that. Grabs his boom box and then breaks out his face like, where's Rock and Roll? In your heart.
Yeah, I love it because, Rock and Roll, the character itself was from Malibu. He was a surfer, but he's the G.I. Joe's heavy machine gunner. Yeah. So he's just a giant dude. He was the heavy machine gunner before Roblox came along.
Those were the characters that were really not flashy when you look at the action figure. They were like, it's a guy with a thing.
All of them are from the class of '82, that first wave, which had maybe 3 different sculpts. The body they were just all painted differently. Yep. So it was before they really started to, because the G.I. Joe line took off like nobody's business. So that's how we got the biggest toy ever made, which was the USS Flag, because
it's before they became the Village People.
G.I. Joe figures sold tens of millions of dollars in a 3 or 4 year period. It was probably, not to knock on Star Wars, one of the biggest figure lines of all time. I mean, we didn't get a life-size Death Star. We got a to scale aircraft carrier.
G.I. Joe became what it was because of Star Wars, right? What are they doing? We need to compete with them. And it's like, we're going to make little guys versus like Barbie size guys.
Yeah, exactly. So they just absolutely crushed it. But from this series, we go to see Duke and his gang get locked up. And it's really cool because it's in the pit, which was G.I. Joe's original headquarters. And the line is, I thought I got decommissioned back in the 80s, which is funny because
Guantanamo.
That was G.I. Joe's original headquarters. It didn't get decommissioned and it got blown up, so it wasn't there anymore. But through this, we meet the Baroness. And again, Major Blood is the one hired to bring them in. She caps him in the head and takes his eye.
Oh, I thought he was done. I thought, crap. I know. They popped him, and
that was the article the week after it came. Like, how could they kill Major Blood in his first appearance? No, in the next issue he was alive.
That's how he got an eye patch, because you got to do that. But I loved when they introduced like Baroness. They did it in a very quick snapshot. Boom. I'm like, that is how you write effectively. Just like boom, put it out there and just go in for the ride.
Yeah, like I said, and even though Duke is bloodied, he's been shot a bunch of times, had his ass kicked over and over again, and he still tells the Baroness, he reads her dossier because he's like, I looked you up, he's just like Jack Bauer. He is just, totally nailed it. So I absolutely loved all that. Obviously, the story moves forward. Our people escape. The Baroness disappears, obviously, to come back at some later time. And then eventually, Duke's investigations after he's free lead him to a one-on-one facing Destro, who's the major villain. I do love how they escape.
What do they do? They find in the pit all these decommissioned vehicles.
Yeah, they find a Sky Striker. They aid the troop transport, and of course the Vamp.
But they have no weapons, no ammo. But they're gonna.
But they're all fueled up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then just like in the cartoon, Duke knows how to fly a fighter jet. So it's amazing.
Exactly. That's right.
Exactly.
Perfect.
So he takes
Army
off
and fighter jets are go hand in hand.
Absolutely, because the Army has a ton of fighter jets. Everybody knows that.
Exactly. Yeah.
No, we then get when Duke is on his way to Mars, which is the armament company owned by Destro.
Does this stand for something like the M.A.R.S?
It's military armaments. Whatever the RS is, you can look it up. I'm sorry, I should know. I apologize. But anyway, this is when we meet Scrap Iron, who's a munitions guy who shoots down the Sky Striker.
Obviously, had some issues.
Yeah, and it's funny because that's exactly like the figure. The figure is scarred like that too. So it's a final showdown. The only non-classic character we get in here is the Battle Android Trooper, which came later in the G.I. Joe series. Everything else you see,
and they were cool. I liked it. I like the fact they were having a hardcore battle. I love that.
Duke
made me very smile
by tearing its head out. So at the end of the series, once Duke has kind of proven that this was all orchestrated by the villains and all this different stuff, they finally bring him back into the fold and said, and Hawk says, I'm starting a special team. Our real headquarters is in the desert, which is where the third pit was in the Utah desert under 3 Quonset huts. That was the pit. And then that's where they're going to kick off this series that we're getting in November.
Is that where they found the Mormon scrolls?
You bet. Yep. Digging in the desert. And it said, here is the pit.
I love that.
Absolutely fantastic story. And again, the creative team is Joshua Williamson, who has written for both Superman and Batman, and Tom Reilly, who's done The Thing and Ant-Man. So a very well-rounded creative cast.
Yeah. Great synergy of taking a good story, re-kicking it off.
Yep.
It feels modern. It was very cool. Good writing. Yeah. Introduction of these classic characters in a new light. I loved what they've done. This whole Energon universe feels like, wow, these franchises are in a good spot.
It's good stuff, yeah. So please go out to your local comic shop. They probably have all 5 issues. As Todd mentioned, this has been collected into a trade, which is called Knowing is Half the Battle. We both read it on Kindle. I bought it. Todd bought it. And as I've said, if you don't have it already, usually if you go to Kindle for something that's been out for a while, it's half price. So they're about $2 an issue. So you can get
collection or the single issues that go on sale about 30 days after the fact. If you're Comixology Unlimited, you do get a discount.
But this is one, and again, I talked about it back in December when this first came out. This has been one of the series that I have loved the most in recent history. I just absolutely love this. Cobra Commander was out at the same time, and I believe we're talking about that one as well in our next segment, I think. So we'll get
either that or we're going to skip, and then we'll get to this one too.
We'll get there eventually. But anyway, go out. This is Charlie's recommendation of the year. Go out and get this one ASAP. It's the best. Yo, Joe!
Yeah, it's what we've been missing with G.I. Joe. We needed a solid entry point for the series for new people, why it's good, and they're building it on and bringing it on with a partnership of a bigger world with Transformers, which it was always tangentially kind of aligned with, like with Marvel, because they're both publishing Transformers and G.I. Joe, and Spider-Man would show up eventually, and Yes.
Well, good. All right. Well, that's a wrap. So Patreons, we love you. Thanks for tuning in to all of our fun, great content. And then, as I always like to say, keep them spinning, keep them spinning.
Keep on reading.
This podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network. Visit secretfriendsunite.com for more great shows, articles, news, reviews, and more. Secret Friends Unite podcasts are available on Apple, Google, Spotify, and other podcast services around the world. If you'd like to be part of the conversation, you can join us on Facebook or our new Discord server, or follow @SecretFriendsU on Twitter. Please subscribe to Secret Friends Unite on YouTube and visit our merch store at tpublic.com. Just search Secret Friends Unite. Thanks for listening.